Okay.
At this time, I'd like to call our special meeting of the Board of Education for the purpose of discussion of COVID-19 protocols at North Central local schools and any other business that may come before the board. Let us say the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That door's probably locked. Lee, or, Kristen's trying to.
Would you like to come in?
Need another chair? Move down more, so there's space down there.
Call roll, please.
Lee,
Here.
Anthony, here. Homer,
Here.
Tim,
Here.
Shane, here.
Any items from board members? Treasurer's report.
That's just tabling the last meeting's minutes until our October meeting there, Homer.
Any, can I have a motion to table the minutes from October 4th or September 14th meeting?
I'll move.
I have a motion by Tim. Do I hear a second?
Yeah.
Shane?
Second.
Call roll, please.
Anthony,
Yes.
Homer,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Shane,
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Recommendation superintendent.
This is just a special session of the North Central Local Board of Education for the purpose of discussion COVID-19 protocols, and that's what we're going to be doing. And we either will have some kind of a resolution or we'll have something for the next meeting. That's totally up to the board. There are some concepts out there. First of all, we should probably talk about, and I'd like Kristen to talk a little bit about this. Actually, the Ohio Department of Health already has protocols that we've been following for the last 2 years. And basically, the way that works is that if someone's positive, okay, COVID positive, and it's reported through a doctor or through the Department of Health, it goes on a database and we see it, and then that person's quarantined by the health department or the doctor. Some of the doctors are doing it right from the doctor's office, so they'll write a note. And then what we do is we take the information and we look for the close contacts. So we can give that information to the health department so that they can notify those folks of, because they'll do an interview of the person that's actually positive. They'll find out when symptoms started, and then they go back a couple of days from that, and then we look through our schedule to see who might have been affected or exposed. Does that sort of sum it up?
Mhm.
That's the protocol that's been done. There has been some adjustments to that, because if you're wearing a mask, quarantining is mask and 3 feet, quarantining doesn't exist. We are a mask optional school, so many of us don't wear masks, so therefore that's kind of off the table. There's another part of it about, being, having your shot, and, we don't ask that question particularly. So, I mean, is there anything else that I missed that we've been
No,
following?
just that the original guidelines from
Guidelines,
last
yes.
year are still in place.
Right.
The only addendum is actually specific to the classroom, K-12.
Yep.
So everything that we were following last year is actually still in effect. They just have made some accommodations to try to keep students at school.
Which is what we're working at doing. Currently, you're quarantined, you're home for 10 days.
Yes.
And we're looking to modify that. And keep
We're looking
keep
at
the
our
kids
own
in the
modifications of the modifications. I guess I call that modifications of the modifications.
Yes.
Do we have any numbers on close contacts that have been quarantined and percentages of those close contacts that have been told to stay home and quarantine for a period of time that have eventually tested positive for COVID?
I don't believe we have any here at North Central that
Right.
have been, to
I'm
my
just saying,
knowledge, to my knowledge,
There,
I'll say,
there are no percentages or no numbers out there as far as, I mean, because the issue is we're telling healthy kids, you need to stay home for 7 days, 10 days, whatever the number of days may be. Sometimes 5, 6, 7 days after they last had contact with this person. And we're keeping kids that are completely healthy home from school and not in school where they really need to be when they're healthy. And that's why we're having this meeting.
Yes,
We're
exactly.
looking
We
at
think that
addressing
they're
that
healthy.
issue.
Yeah, we
we
think,
think that they're healthy.
That's what I'm saying. Are those kids that are being
Presumably healthy, yeah.
quarantined getting sick? Do we have any numbers on number of those kids that are
Not
being
here at
quarantined,
Pioneer,
getting sick?
not here in Pioneer.
That's,
There
No,
are-
Maybe at a school.
when you
even the
say not
county.
here, we have not had any cases.
Not to my,
To your knowledge.
to my knowledge, there are not people
I'd
that
ask that
have
question.
reported that they have become sick as a contact tracing
Gotcha.
person. That has happened
That's what
at
it is right
Hilltop.
there.
Since I'm the nurse there, I feel like I could say that that has happened at Hilltop.
and it has happened at Bryan. And where we're seeing the spread is within families. I mean, like, you know,
right. living
family
in the
members,
same
cause,
household.
yeah, and they live in the
Yes.
same house. We've seen
Just an
that.
email I sent
But
to
there are students
Jim.
at Hilltop that were contact traced
Does
out
mine
and
lower?
became positive.
Jim's responses.
And they're not
Back up to the
masking,
top.
they're masking optional as well.
Basically the question Shane was asking.
Gotcha.
And right now, if we were to just update as of yesterday, and I don't know the numbers today, today's the 22nd, it's early, but typically I find out the new cases afternoon, and sometimes it's at 2, 3, 4 o'clock. But as of yesterday, we have 16 students positive and 1 staff member. Just to give you some perspective, last year we had 22 students all year and 32 staff, which was a total of 54. This year, if we continue at this ratio, which is 16 kids in 22 days, we would have approximately 116 students be positive in 160 days. That takes us towards the end of the year. So just with that, and then staff, we've had 1. Remember last year we had 32, so we had 1 staff in 22 days. That would give us about 7 staff in 160 days. So that's where we're seeing. I'm not a doctor,
Right.
not a nurse.
But so on average per month, what are we seeing?
Average per month in 1 month. I mean, we've had 22 days. We're seeing 17 positive cases in 22
Right,
days,
I guess
22
I-
school days.
I was just asking because like if you
25
take
to
a look
30.
over the course of the whole year,
Yes.
that's, sure, it looks like a much larger number, but if we
Yes.
break that down on average by month, then.
On 22 days,
Just under 1 a day.
Right,
it would be.
right.
a
But will that
month.
trend continue
We don't,
You know,
I don't.
or not? We don't know. It's-
I'm just telling you what the numbers are that I
Right,
see.
right,
That's all. I
right.
can't,
Nope, understand. Can't forecast the future.
I cannot forecast. I can just tell you the information that I have currently.
A
and
little bit
that's-
beyond me.
And I mean, you can't base it on our mask optional policy either. I mean, we're in a totally different situation. Last year, everything was mandated. You
Yes.
couldn't go outside without a mask.
Right.
So,
So yeah, it was mask mandated. So I'm just telling you the numbers we had last year versus the numbers we have this year.
Mhm.
I don't know what the numbers are going to be after 160 days. I have no clue. So some of the options that we have, we were looking at, and we worked on this. You guys requested this. So Kristen has been very helpful. So everybody can kind of uniformly agree that that's makes sense. Okay, so we have broken down our quarantining in 3 categories. We have a mandatory mask quarantine. We have a modified mask and testing quarantine. And we have what's called, we call it a traditional quarantine. The traditional quarantine is exactly what we talked about when we started the Ohio Department of Health. It's what Shane was talking about, that you stay out of school for the 10 days. That's our third option. So we created 2 other options. Mandatory mask quarantine, a student who is symptom-free, and this is, the board thinks it's okay. A student who is symptom-free will be permitted to continue in-person learning provided they do the following, and then there's bullet points. First one is wear a properly fitted face covering for 10 days while on school grounds for any reason. So in other words, if you want to come back and you've been quarantined or you fall into one of the close contacts, you can come back to school, but you gotta have a mask on. Perform daily self-checks to ensure they remain symptom-free. That's a parent thing. After the 10th day of being symptom-free, the student may return to normal protocol of mask optional. So after that period of time, they can go back to either keeping the mask on or off. Some kids are wearing masks, some aren't. Student may not participate in extracurricular activities for the first 10 days. Failure to comply with the proper masking, the student will automatically complete the remainder of the quarantine at home, just like that would be back to the traditional if they don't want to have the mask.
So just to clarify, and I'm sure you can help with that.
She's the expert.
When it talks about, and this is just because, there may be the question out there, performing daily self-checks to ensure remaining symptom-free, what all is included in those daily self-checks? Because I'm sure
No
somebody may
fever,
ask.
fever-free without medication. No cough. No sniffy nose. No congestion. No abdominal issues like stomach ache, vomiting, diarrhea, headache, loss of taste and smell. There's many things. There's a
Right.
list that
Well, I'm sure
there's a
there's a
checklist
list
that I
of
have
symptoms. Okay.
that I used last year
Okay.
that was given to me. So I could provide that on the website. If I think it might even be there.
It may very well be there.
And we could always attach
Add
it to
it.
this.
Well, I think if we put like an addendum on there, just so that it clarifies.
Another addendum?
Well,
I mean,
that's up to you guys, but I'm just,
Yeah.
trying for clarification, so as you might get somebody that's gonna say, well, what about? What if they have this and this? Well, how many symptoms constitute whether it's okay, so.
So that's number one. Okay, number two is called modified mask and testing quarantine. So just think about these options. Okay, a student who is symptom-free will be permitted to continue in-person learning provided they do the following. So this is another set of options. With a PCR test, and a PCR test means a actual COVID test, right?
Mhm.
You go and get tested.
And it's a verified
It's a verified
lab
test
test.
by the lab or doctor, and you wear a properly fitted face covering for 5 days while on school grounds for any reason. On the 5th day of quarantine, have a medical doctor verified negative PCR test results. On day 7, student may return to normal school protocol and extracurricular activities. Okay, and then with a vaccination, see, that's another option under this one. Individuals who are symptom-free and can verify fully vaccination status can continue in-person learning if wearing properly fitted face covering for 10 days, may participate in extracurricular activities as long as they have no symptoms. So if you're vaccinated, you wear the mask and you have no symptoms, you can participate. And then the third step to that is with an antibody test. Individuals with a doctor-verified antibody test within 90 days of current quarantine date can continue in-person learning while wearing a properly fitted face covering, may participate, and we would add something like may participate in extracurricular activities as long as they have no symptoms. So we're kind of looking at it, a vaccinated person, and a person with an antibody test is kind of the same thing. Okay, and then I put a return to extracurricular activity protocols for vaccinated individuals and those with a positive antibody test are the same. Okay, so there you've got the mandatory mask quarantine, you've got the modified mask, which has some options, and then you have traditional quarantine, which is individuals presenting symptoms when a quarantine is issued or who develop symptoms during quarantine must be isolated and out of school for a period of 10 days. Any student determined to be a close contact and was wearing a properly fitted mask covering will not be required to quarantine. So I want to make sure that,
And they can continue to participate in their extracurriculars, correct?
yes, they won't even be part of the quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
So unless, of course, they get sick, and that's the key. If you're sick, you stay home.
Yeah.
I mean, that's helpful to
Right.
everybody. And then, as part of this, we'll have, the guidelines for quarantine after exposure that we've seen from the ODE. We'll have, if you contract or test positive for COVID, you can't come to school, just to remind you. So that is kind of the crux of what it is.
Another thing I probably noticed on the antibody test one, properly fitted face covering, we're gonna make that one for 10 days.
Yes, I
As
noticed
well.
that too.
Let's add that. I know we'll have some kickback. Well, they can perform in athletics and they don't have to wear a mask, but you're making them wear a mask in the building. I think to that is we have a lot more bodies to worry about inside the building.
Right.
Where at a sporting event, they're pretty
So-
contained to a
So
small
where are
group.
you?
On
Wearing-
C,
C, okay.
Face covering for 10 days right at the end of it.
we didn't really put it
Right?
a certain time limit on
Okay.
a mask face covering.
That's-
So I need to count someone get 410 days.
I think is what I
I added the word protocol under PCR test. If you go to bullet point 3, it says on day 7, student may return to normal school protocol. That wasn't in there, so I think I need to add that word. And then at the end of C, not only for 10 days, I got to somehow put in there, may participate in extracurricular activities as long as they have no symptoms. I got to add that somewhere in C to make it.
And then you're gonna get rid of that other part, right?
And I can potentially get rid of the other part or just leave it in there anyways. Return to extracurricular activity protocols for vaccinated individuals and those with a positive antibody test are the same. I could leave.
Yeah,
that. I mean, it
yeah,
doesn't hurt anything to
leave.
be there, does it?
Just
No.
add that other part.
I think just
No,
at
it
least,
just clarifies that they understand that if they're vaccinated or they're using the antibody test, both of them equal the
Right.
same result.
yeah,
If that's what we, if that's what.
yeah,
Which, if you put that down in the antibody test, wouldn't that clarify that they're allowed to participate in extracurriculars? So that would solve.
I think so. So,
no, I think,
And our teachers and staff are gonna be kind of monitoring our students to make sure they're wearing properly fitted face
they're
covering.
gonna have to, we're gonna have to provide some kind of a, depending on what parents choose. I mean, some are gonna say, I just want the traditional. Some are gonna say, yeah, we'll have to let people know who's supposed to be wearing a mask and who isn't. And if they're not wearing a mask, then that's where the problem becomes, if that's the choice that they make.
mhm.
I mean, we're giving them a choice within a choice. I guess it's a way to look at it. So, yeah.
To keep kids here
It's
for
options.
in-person learning.
yes.
And it's something
And that
Kendra would,
hasn't been done in the past, like people were not aware of who was.
mhm, and actually in the quarantine, other than noticing they're gone.
Yes. Right. And there are kids wearing masks now, and that's not because they're under quarantine.
Yeah, and it's something Kendra will have to, and probably Julie, change her rewording of how she approaches the phone call of saying their child's been quarantined.
Or just have a list of
I'll have to
students.
give them the options. Well, when she calls that parent, list the options or tell them the options or on the school website of how you want to approach your child being quarantined or something.
Julie and, whoever makes the calls, Kristen. Kendra.
Mr. Moore
Marsha,
made some last night.
Mr. Moore, Yeah, that's why we gotta get this information to them to make sure that it's, everybody understands it.
And when is this gonna go into effect?
Well, that would be the question. We want time to get the information out,
Well,
if in fact we approve it, what I mean.
Well, we
that's-
want to make sure that they have time to, at least peruse it, understand it, and then be able to get that out so that they understand what the practices are that going
Mhm.
forward.
Yeah, I mean, I would
Just-
think next Monday it would be the soonest we would implement anything. I don't know.
Right.
Everybody feels comfortable with that.
Well,
So you're talking about
right.
September 27th, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, we got enough time for everybody to
That
get,
would be next Monday, 27th.
would that be enough time to get everybody up to speed, or would it be better just wait until October 1 and give them a couple extra days? I don't know.
Yeah, either October 1's fine with me, if that's what you guys
Is that a
prefer.
week
We
from
need
today?
to make sure we get the information.
Close to it, a little over a week. October 1st is next Friday.
How much time do you think, Kristen, honestly? Like to get it, I mean, is Monday too quick?
Not if we have time to have if the administrators have time to have a staff meeting, but I mean, if people have questions, it just depends on. I mean, they'd have to have a staff meeting maybe tomorrow or Friday, and I don't know how that works in everybody's schedule.
Mm-hmm.
It could happen by Monday, but it might be a little rushed.
Probably safer would be either the 1st or you go the 4th and just start it right out on the
a Monday.
beginning of the week. And then that'll give you all next week to answer questions and
Right, I'm sure there'll
get
be
things implemented.
questions, sure.
October 4th would be that following Monday.
Yeah,
We started
yeah.
on Monday.
Yeah.
That's
Writing
why I
down,
asked.
I'm just writing down numbers.
Right,
I think.
I think like Kristen said, there's gonna be some questions and like I say,
By
you're
the
gonna have
time
to
you
get
announce
meetings
a
and.
meeting, even if you announce it yet today, and trying to schedule it,
right.
it could take you the next Thursday or.
I gotta get this stuff typed up correctly. So
Mhm.
that's number
Well,
one.
Right.
true, but that's what I'm
You're
saying.
talking about like,
You
I
may,
gotta make sure I got it exact because I know what'll happen if I don't. Somebody here is gonna say, you didn't put that the way I told you. So I just wanna make sure that's first.
Mm-hmm.
but if that takes a day, then you're not gonna announce that we need to have a.
Right, I get it. I'm just saying, that's my first step is to make sure I got the information there that the way you guys want.
Well, I think the key is just to make sure that, we're giving ourselves ample time so the staff can be up to speed. We can answer any questions and that everybody understands that this is a foundation. We're being charged with looking out for the safety and health and welfare of our kids. And so we've got a foundation here and that is also a living, breathing document. So there can be adjustments that can be made. If somebody comes with, somebody has better solutions or ideas, then we can make those adjustments as we go forward. But I think that gives them plenty of
Trial
time.
basis, we'll try it, and see how it works.
Well, right.
If we find
It's
that
not something that we've
this
had to
isn't
do ever.
effective and we're having issues with this,
We'll make the
go back
adjustments
in.
as necessary.
Can I ask one more question about it then? If we start implementing, when we implement this, the people that have been quarantined, even up into, say, the day before, will they follow the old rules and then starting forward on Monday, you start the new rules? Guidelines,
Yeah, that's a good question.
because there will be someone that pushes that envelope.
Inevitably, sure.
Mm-hmm. Or if it happened to get quarantined on Friday and.
Right, and it changes on Monday, then the question is,
Mhm.
what. I just want it to be,
Right.
everybody has the same information, everybody's doing the same thing across the board.
Mm-hmm. I mean, once the staff's informed and questions answered, I don't know what the problem is backdating to those quarantine victims. If they wanna go with one of these options and come to school for 3 days with a mask, then
It makes
I
sense. Yeah,
don't think it's gonna hurt anything.
no, that makes sense.
These are the rules of that day.
Well, right. I
And
think anytime you transition, you're always gonna run into those situations where you got somebody who's caught here and,
Yeah.
caught
oh, I
here.
understand that. but
Sure.
If you're gonna change it, you change
Right,
it.
I think you had a document.
That's the rules
Oh,
that
yeah.
gotta start going
I
by,
got it. I got it.
only because
You're gonna put that
that's where you're
in-
going
the
forward.
thing in that document.
Yes. I will type it in there when, so that way that part of it we can take care of.
Has your question been answered? Earlier, you said you had a question.
Oh, the more I kept listening, I got my question.
Okay.
Thank you, thank you.
I was hoping I was able to work along with her to figure this out, because I'm definitely, I'm not gonna say I'm a doctor or a nurse or any kind of medical person. We're just trying to keep the school open, that's our goal.
School open, kids in
Keep
here.
kids in here and keep kids participating in what they want to participate.
Well, and we are over a year and a half into this whole thing. So it's not like it's brand new and parents don't know what we're dealing with here. I
Well,
mean, we've
right.
been dealing with this for over a year and a half.
Well, but then, of
We
course,
know
right.
what we're dealing with. It's, when this first started a year and a half ago, we didn't know what we were dealing with.
Right.
we didn't know the risk of being around people.
Well, we also weren't charged with making those health guideline decisions either
Right.
last year.
Right,
So
right.
this year,
Right.
this is on us to try to put together,
But we've seen what
potential
this
best
whole thing
practice, right?
entails.
Sure,
And how it can spread and
sure.
the risks that you take in being around people. And I mean, people are choosing to send their kids to school without a mask, and they're,
And according to House Bill 244, we can't discriminate against people that wear a mask or don't wear a mask or they're
Right.
vaccinated or not vaccinated. That's why we don't.
Yeah.
That's just the deal. Now, we can mandate masks for everybody if we so chose to do. We're not choosing to do that. We want people to have a choice. But I'm saying, as a school district, we can do that. Just haven't chose to do that. So we're trying to give people choices and trying to keep the school going. We're not trying to keep people out of school. That's not our intention. We're not trying to not participate in activities, whatever that is. But we also have to think about this, the health and safety of the masses, because we are a public place where everybody comes to. So, that's one of our number one jobs, is to make sure people are safe. So, I just want to keep that in mind. If you recall, back in February of 2020, this was before the governor shut us down right at spring break. If you recall, it was like we had school that Friday and then
for a couple of days.
Right, so we missed school not knowing what it was because we had a percentage of students that were out at that time. I remember talking to Homer and saying, hey, we reached X number, and he said, hey, we need to shut it down, and that's what we had done. And then
It
we
was for influenza.
yeah, it was influenza at that time, but we weren't sure what was going on. We just knew that the numbers were high. So if we get to a certain number of positive COVID cases all at one time, we may be in the same boat. Just to keep you aware of that.
At that point, yeah, we just need to
We need to.
shut down again and.
Right.
But the question is what is that number?
Oh, I would say 17 cases all at the same time. That would be a lot.
Well, and I was
Building.
looking at your list too, and I was tending to feel
Mhm.
that was, if we have that many all at once, I would agree with that. I just, because that was my next point of discussion was, what is our magic number? And I agree with that one totally.
That's not 17 total, that's 17 active cases.
Right.
The totals could be some other number, and we continue to update the totals every single day. We have to. It's out on the
I guess
website.
when I'm thinking total, and I'm
Right.
thinking
I just want to make sure that's
active,
clarified.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking active, I'm not
Yes.
thinking,
Yeah, that's 17 in a given day.
Yeah, 17
You got
in
positive
a,
cases coming.
3-4 day period. Like right now, we've had 7-8 cases in 4 school days. So that's a lot for us. So, but we
But
also
as far as ill kids being out of
Yes.
the entire district, that's a different number.
yes,
Where we don't know what everyone has.
right. So and not everybody has COVID. Okay, that's not.
No.
Right. So that's some people are, you still get sick.
Yes,
There's still flu. There's still
strep throat.
strep throat. There's
Cold.
still, all
Yeah.
kinds of other things.
I
So-
think that's at a higher rate right now than normal because our kids wore masks and we so thoroughly cleaned everything for such a long period of time. We didn't expose our kids to any germs. And now when they start coming, their body's immune systems have not been built up for the last year and a half. And now when they come in contact with those germs, they can't fight it off. And so they are getting sick.
And adults as
And
well.
adults as well, yeah.
But that just shows that masks do work for
Oh.
keeping people from getting those illnesses.
Yep. And I like the one with the bullet points that I think you put together. And
It was just for simplicity.
yeah, I think it is a lot more simple to read and understand.
Basically, Anthony is saying, I just want to sum up what he's saying, that my long typed up thing was confusing.
It wasn't confusing,
No,
it just
it's-
was a lot of information in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
paragraph.
Okay, and I want to echo what he says, the same thing. I agree that the bullet points
An outline is easier.
and the outline is
Yeah.
easier to follow, and it's more
It's a lot more direct.
user-friendly and
Yeah,
reader-friendly. So I have to
That's
thank
cool.
you for that.
That's
I
good.
appreciate the effort that you put into that. I know you worked on the weekends to do that, and
It's
so
okay.
I appreciate it.
Can I get some clarification? Like under number 2, modified mask and testing quarantine. Bullet point A, with a COVID test that comes back negative, correct? That's what that's referring to?
Yeah, PCR test.
Okay. So if you go get tested and it's negative,
Mhm.
you still need to,
Wear a mask for 5 days.
and not participate in extracurricular activities
And-
for 7 days? And what's the reasoning? I just want the reason, an explanation on that, because some people may not. What's the
You don't
point of
actually
getting
go
tested?
You don't actually go get the test until after the 5th day.
You have, right, they
You
will
have to
not,
wait
te-
5 days to get
Yes.
tested.
if you've
Okay,
been exposed, they will not test you for the first 5 days.
okay, all right, then
Because there's an incubation period.
Mm-hmm.
If,
we might want to clarify that, because people might think, oh, if I get a call today, I can go tomorrow and get tested.
Right, and that is marked real
It says
clear
on
on
the
the.
fifth
Department
day.
It's
of
on
Health.
it's on the,
Yeah.
Have a medical doctor verified negative PCR test results.
And the reason that we say a doctor has to
Right.
verify it
right,
is because some of the home tests are not, they can be questionable on how someone actually performs it properly. Or I could take your test for you and say,
right, yeah,
there's no way to prove who
Yeah.
took the test.
yes. I don't know if we just want to put in parentheses after with PCR test, and then put in parentheses, which you can receive 5 days after contact. Or,
Where would you like me to put that?
I'm just saying, just so people know, they can't go get that test until after the 5th day.
I don't think the doctor will test them.
Right, I know, but I'm just saying
They
in our,
shouldn't.
Oh.
in our paper, just so they know that
Mhm.
that's when they can go get that test. They can't do it in the first couple days after contact.
So Kristen, what would I say on that? Like after the PCR, like in the bold, just say must be 5 days after exposure? Is that? 5 days.
yeah, on the 5th day of quarantine,
Yeah, it's on there.
Yeah, after day
then,
5.
then you can go see the doctor.
On day 5, you have the option to be tested. I don't know how, you could say, you can change the wording of that slightly they don't have to get a negative test. They don't have to go get tested.
Right.
They
If
can
they,
just wait
they can just
another
wear their
5 days.
mask the whole
Yeah.
time.
And not
If
get
they,
tested.
if they
If
don't want to,
choose to get tested.
yeah, if they
then-
don't want to wear their mask for 10 days, then they can go get this test and see if it's negative.
Right.
The caveat to that
Is
is
if they get
that,
tested and they test positive.
yeah,
then
then
yeah,
then
even if
they're
they don't have
quarantined.
symptoms or,
Mhm.
yes,
Hmm.
yes.
Yeah,
Then they start the 10 days all over.
Right, and they're actually quarantined and they can't come to school.
yeah, for 10 days. What's the medical theory behind the extra 2 days once you have a negative test? Do they
Well,
feel
it
you could
usually
still?
takes up
2 days.
to a couple of days, depending on where you get your testing done. It can take 2 to 3 days to get results. So I think that's what it is. Some places.
So that's what that's basing on. So if you could get a rapid test done at a facility and have it within 2 hours,
It still has to.
you still have to
so
wait 7 days?
It still has to be,
It
the
still has to
important
be
part is it
verified by
has to
the
be
doctor.
doctor verified. It doesn't necessarily have to be 2 days, but it has to be doctor verified.
Yeah,
is what-
that's just the protocol that, that was the guidelines that say, even for somebody like myself, I'm vaccinated. But if I was exposed to somebody that had COVID a couple weeks ago, I could have gone after day 5 and gotten my own test done and not had to wear a mask and all of that. I chose not to do that and just wear my mask because I thought if I'm asymptomatic and I test positive, I can't come to work. So I opted to just wear my mask everywhere I went
Mhm.
for 2 weeks, even though I've been vaccinated. So I even knew that I had protection and opted not to have the test.
The only difference here would be a kid who's in extracurriculars that wants to get back sooner. Difference in from what you did, correct? really, that's,
Well, if
I
I
mean,
they
can
can
get them to
mask,
come
but
to
they still
work,
can't, right? But they can't play in sports until after,
Until they bring a,
right.
doctor
So I-
verified, and
yeah.
if they can get it. I see what
Sooner.
Anthony's saying is, because if you could get the results the same day, which would be the 6th day,
yeah, I mean,
I don't want to make this a ton of words that, but
no, I don't either, but maybe instead of on the 7th day, if that's the philosophy behind it, then once a medical negative test is brought forth, you may proceed in
and the
extracurricular
other part of that
activities.
would be, as she said, sometimes some places it's 3 days before you get the results.
Right, so then you don't go participate until the 8th day.
Well, because you're
If you
not
don't
gonna.
get us a result, then we can't allow you to play in sports.
Exactly, but you could get it, take the test on the 6th day and get it, or get a doctor's release on that 6th day,
Mm-hmm.
which would allow you to practice, participate maybe a day or two earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I see what you're. I guess as long as you got the doctors okay. And you
Yeah, as long
follow
as you
that
got
part of the procedure and come back negative, but I don't know how you word it.
just take off the 7th day and
Mhm.
just put.
Include it in bullet
these-
point 2.
These student may return to normal school and extracurricular activities once they have a
Normal school
ver-
protocol and extra school.
Once they have-
yes, once they have a
doctor
verified.
Verified
Yeah.
negative test.
Mhm.
And they can do it after day 5, it just can't be before day 5.
Mhm. Yeah, no.
I'll have to figure out that.
You're like, oh, back to the drawing board.
At least I got something down on paper. I got started.
Anything else? Do we wish to make a resolution for option 2 with changes?
Option 2 is the one with the bullet points.
Right,
Just so you know.
Right.
okay, you're right, and I asked that question.
Yes. So that's,
Option 2
I have the other one typed out, this
with
long paragraph.
modifications, right?
Yes, with modifications, if that's what they want.
I just wrote that in there, so I have that.
Modifications have yet to be made. I will make them. Make sure that they are.
And a description of the daily self checks, as
Okay.
Tim mentioned.
Add what she wants for the self-checks, like add part, okay?
Yeah, I think so.
Does that make it plainer?
So,
She might have the exact wording on a document there to tell you how to put it in there.
which one?
She's asking.
This one.
She writes
She,
something on
yeah,
there.
she
We
will help
wouldn't
me.
put unvaccinated, we would just put after the PCR test.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't specify.
And get tested at least 5 days after exposure and wear a mask until that comes back negative.
Kristen, you'll have that, so we can work on this. And
Yeah.
the other thing is about the different symptoms that we can maybe,
Yes,
Put it-
I'll pull that up from
okay, and I can,
last
and
year.
I can attach that with this.
Mhm.
Like
And
that.
if they have any of those symptoms, they need to stay.
Or doesn't that have them all?
Actually, yes.
I just saw that hanging there.
This would be the checklist. Thank you.
Yeah, I just haven't seen that hanging back there behind you.
I think so.
That's what we followed.
That doesn't really point out just the runny nose.
Just on the other, do you want the other side is included as well? Because that does.
I don't know. Yeah,
It makes everything brighter.
Anthony's really bright.
Blowing up.
Between the wet hair.
Good thing
and
Tim didn't say a word.
Right. I see what you did there. See what you did there.
Oh, look, now it's looking at you now. It's got you.
I know.
Oh,
I'll I'll include whichever document that, and I'll make sure everybody sees it, so you guys,
Does anybody else?
we're looking at October 4th.
Yeah, it would be a Monday.
Week and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And Kristen, if that's what you want as part of it, I'll just make it part of it.
As long as they're okay with that, that's just kind of a,
Yeah, I like the back bullet
Yeah,
points.
I
I
mean, I
think
don't-
runny noses,
Well,
it's flu or allergy season and.
right.
I mean, my nose seems like it's always running here recently just with allergies and.
Yeah.
And then are they still, you have to have at least 2 of those symptoms? We don't have to put that on there, but I know originally when the first wave went through, you had to have like 2 of the
yeah, so
5
the,
symptoms. to-
so the symptoms that were originally listed, it said at least one of the following: cough, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, loss of taste or smell. Those were automatic. If you had any of those, please just stay home and get checked.
Mhm.
And then, or 2 of the others: fever, chills, muscle pain, sore throat, congestion, runny nose, headache, gastrointestinal symptoms such as nausea, vomiting, diarrhea.
Why is fever not in the one category? If you have a fever, stay home.
Well, that's true.
I mean,
A fever over 100, they're supposed to stay home anyway.
yeah.
Mhm.
What-
But people come to school with fevers all the time or are masked with medications. I also have people that come and say, I threw up last night and I'm here at school today and I don't feel good. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I
Oh,
could
know.
list
My
off
wife's a
100
teacher.
million things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, people have jobs that they feel like they need to be at and don't have someone to watch their children. So,
Yeah, it's tough.
yeah, I understand it, but it
Mhm.
makes it difficult sometimes.